Hi, I'm Talicza.
And I'm Rachael, and this is Transatlantic Crime, a true crime podcast that covers stories from each side of the pond. Every week, we will both cover a separate story with a running theme.
Disclaimer, this podcast will contain swearing and details that some people may find offensive. If you are of a sensitive disposition, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Transatlantic Crime.
So close.
Hello, mate.
Is that you still being English from last week?
Yep, I've kept it this whole week. I've just kept it up.
Well, that must be pleasant for people. I haven't had a chance to listen to our podcast this week because I listen to it every Monday. Once you've edited it and put it up, I listen to it because I'm like, I want to hear how I sound not like a prick, hopefully. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll listen to it. And I haven't even had time to do that today. I say time, I mean, we've been basically watching programs about like nightmare neighbours.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
Yeah.
What's it called?
They're brilliant.
It's called The Devil Next Door or something. That's
what
the show is
yeah.
here.
The Devil Next Door. Oh my God.
I think so. You know, I told you about my trainer, my personal trainer.
Yeah.
She loves watching that show. So we talk about that one a lot.
It's just trash. Like, I just love trash TV. Especially at the like me and Carly call it My Life's Better Than Yours TV. Like,
just a nice reminder.
yeah, like when you're in a mood, it's just fucking great.
Yeah.
I know what I was going to say. So this week, when this comes out, it'll come out on a Monday. And then on the Wednesday, it's lovely Patreon supporter Ruth's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
So happy birthday, Ruth.
Yeah.
And like, we were on the girl chat and she was saying, oh God, it's just shit, like not having a boyfriend for your birthday. And I just thought to myself, if it makes you feel any better, my birthday just gone. My boyfriend turned up inexplicably late because he'd been making a crumble. Then he bought me like a plant pot from IKEA. And I know he was going there anyway to like buy washing up draining board shit. And so he just like gave it to me unwrapped, like just handed me a plant pot. Like,
you didn't tell me that.
no, I think I was like too fucking angry or like just trying to like pretend everything was okay. So I was just like, he didn't just give you a plant pot. It's not a big deal. Like,
yeah.
And then I think he said, I was really angry at you on your birthday, but I didn't really want to say anything. So I was like, oh, great. And then we broke up like 5 days later. So trust me, Ruth, having a boyfriend on your birthday doesn't necessarily make it a good birthday.
It's not all it's cracked up to be.
I can think boyfriends, it's not all it's cracked up to be. That is the headline.
Yep.
Have you got any like shit birthday stories that aren't well?
I feel like I've blocked them from memory. They're more depressing though. I feel like they're not funny. The only one I can think
Just
of is
sad.
Like, yeah, like when I lived in Ipswich, then I was like, oh, I want to go to London for my birthday. Like I've never spent time in London. And so we went and it just was not enjoyable. Like he was just mean and
Oh God.
I cried and
Yeah, I've had a boyfriend make me cry on my birthday before. My 21st,
yeah.
Mental Dave, he made me cry.
Yeah, I think it was my 23rd birthday or something, and like that's one that comes to mind.
What's other? I've also had a birthday where I had my ex-boyfriend who cheated on me gave me a birthday card and he'd like spilt soup on it and he like circled the stain and put next to it like sorry about the stain, was eating soup. I was like, fuck you. Write the card away from your lunch or get a new card.
This isn't like a half-hazard, just do it quick while you're eating. Like you
That's
have
more
time to
offensive
sign
than
a
no
card.
And then he got me like a box of cupcakes for my birthday and I fucking hate cupcakes.
Do you?
Yeah, it's just too much icing, too sugary. It's not a meal. It's empty calories. Like that's how I feel about it. I feel like I'd rather have a burger.
A burger.
It's all right. Like, it's fine. We had an apple crumble at the weekend that my mum made, and that was really good. But
yeah, I love all desserts, so
yes.
I love donuts. I love cupcakes.
Donuts are pretty good. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a cake of donuts than a birthday cake. Definitely. I'll see if we can catch up on some true crime news. I've been slacking a bit recently, but there is like Scott Peterson. They found new evidence that like might prove him innocent.
Really? I didn't know that.
And his death penalty got overturned because one of the jury members, I can't remember what happened. Like, one of the jury members should have been struck, and then a few of them were struck for saying they don't believe in the death penalty. So, like, something around the death penalty and the jurors, like, not believing it. And I put it out on our social media, and a couple of people piped up and were like, I think he's innocent.
No way.
Seriously. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I did not know there was a Scott Peterson fan club out there.
How do I miss all of these comments on our social media? Like, I look at everything all the time.
Do ya?
Yeah.
Do you? No, I can't even remember where I saw it. But somebody did, yeah. I think it was Twitter, actually.
Oh, Twitter. I don't go on Twitter.
Yeah, on our Well, I don't really go on it that often. I should do more. But on our Twitter, a couple of people piped up and were like, yeah, I believe he's innocent.
Wow.
I'm just like, fuck. I also got into a bit of a Maura Murray hole.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Has something updated with her case?
No. Do you want to explain Maura Murray for people who might not know who she is?
There's a really good podcast about it too, right? Although since it's unsolved, it doesn't have a happy ending or anything.
And hasn't it got like 45 episodes? And I'm like, what are you still talking about?
I know.
I'm like, good for you, but Jesus Christ, there's got to be some repetition.
Yeah. Basically, she went for a drive, right? I'm like really condensing it down. She went for a drive, and then she was in like the wilderness in, I can't remember what state it was.
Upstate New York, I think.
Yeah, she just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And they checked the houses around. They thought maybe someone in one of the houses might have kidnapped her. They didn't know if she got out of her car and walked away, like if she was on some kind of psychotic break or on drugs or something.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nobody knows what happened to her.
That's the end of it.
Right.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. Basically, I also said I really like the YouTube channel called That Chapter, and I've put about it on our Instagram, and he did a video about her, and somebody put in the comments, like, they took the time to type out this 3,000 word like answer, basically, that was just like, she got in loads of trouble for like stealing when she was in a military academy. She just stole like some makeup or something, and then she stole someone's credit card and ordered pizza on it, which is the stupidest thing ever, because it just comes to your house. And they're like, thanks, criminal. That happened. And then she said that there'd been a death in the family and that she was going home for a bit, basically, so none of her tutors would chase her for stuff. And then, they found like alcohol in her car. She'd also crashed a car before that. So basically, I think her parents are really quite strict. And I think she'd just made too many mistakes, and she was just like, shit. Because the guy who saw her car like crash was like, do you want me to call the police? And she was like, no, I've already called them. And she hadn't.
Right.
So I think she just like absolutely shit herself that she was going to get in more trouble and didn't want any more trouble brought to her door, basically. Mm-hmm. And in the YouTube comments, this person said, I reckon she literally hid from the police in the woods and then just started walking and died in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And they didn't find anything. And they were like, loads of people die in the wilderness and they don't find anything.
Right.
But it was just really convincing. Like, so I kind of think nothing nefarious happened. That's my take on the Maura Murray case.
But didn't in one of the houses it had her DNA or something in it, or?
My understanding was they had a cadaver dog, and they said that there was something buried there, and when they dug it up, it was nothing. Because they did very recently dig it up, and there was nothing.
Yeah. How terrified would you be if that was your house and the dogs came and they're all surrounding you? You're like, I don't know what it is.
You can have it. I'm moving.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that live around that area must just be shitting themselves that they're going to get blamed for her murder, like, any day.
Yeah.
Unless they are the murderer. It's so, I find, it makes me a piss boil, like, the frustration of not knowing.
Yeah, I find that with Israel Keys. Like, I went down a hole with Israel Keys, and when he said that some people just have disappeared, and they think that it's like, oh, they fell off a boat, or they went hiking and they disappeared. Like, how many people? Who's he talking about?
Yeah, because he says that they thought it was just an accident.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, all those people go missing in national parks. It's like a thing, isn't it? The Missing 411. There's a documentary called The Missing 411 and a guy's written a book. Apparently, he's a bit of a crack job.
Oh.
Apparently. And there's some sort of, like, suggestion of aliens or something. And everyone's like, no. Yeah, loads of people go missing, don't they, in national parks?
Yeah.
Which is why I don't know why anyone goes to him, mate.
I don't want to give Israel Keys more credit than he's due. I want to minimize him.
He's a fucking arse pipe when you watch him. He's so smug, isn't he? Like,
he's so smug, and just the fact that he committed suicide is just like, dude, you're a coward at the end of it.
I feel like he was such an attention whore that if he hadn't killed himself, I think they would have got more out of him, more confessions and stuff.
Totally.
Because I think they would have, and that's really fucking annoying.
Yeah.
It's really annoying that Deborah Feldman, who was that woman that he clearly fucking killed,
right?
They showed him a picture and he just freaked out and was like, no, I don't know who that is. No. He clearly killed her. And it's just like, you could have just put more and more pictures in front of him and like, do you know what I mean?
I was listening to The Murder Squad.
Oh, do they do one on him?
Yeah, they talk about him. They had Ashley Flowers from Crime Junkie come on and talk about it. But Paul Holes was like, I don't know why the detectives and the investigators didn't question him with more aggression or more. If you watch the interviews or listen to them, they're so nice to him.
They're kissing his ass.
Exactly. And I think watching that, you're like, why weren't you just more hard on him? Like, no, we're not going to give you what you want. Tell us what we want.
Well, he didn't have a lawyer in with him, did he? For a lot of it. So I think they were just shitting themselves that he was going to turn around and say, fuck you, I'm not talking to you, no comment, I want a lawyer. But like, I think by pussyfooting around him and like kissing his ass, they got him to say more than they would. But it is gross watching it.
Yeah.
They're just like laughing along with him to bits. And I know they have to do that, but it is a bit grim.
The same with listening to the Kelly Cochran on True Crime Bullshit.
Yeah, such a good podcast.
The detective on that like made friends with her and
flirts with her. Yeah,
and I totally get it. I'm sure it's a fine line between like being aggressive and questioning someone and being like, tell me everything, tell me what you know, and then trying to like sweet talk them. Yeah, it would just feel so gross.
I think you have to be a certain type of person.
Flirting.
Yeah, like I'm no good at lying or acting okay with anything that I'm not okay with. Like I'm just like a 2-year-old with like a rotten little face.
Right. I can't hide that either.
No. So yeah, I think you have to be fucking good at pretending.
Yeah.
Takes a certain person, I think. And plus they're like narcissists, aren't they? So they just want people to be super nice to them and like act like they're a god, basically.
It's gross.
I need the next season of True Crime Bullshit to come out now. I love that show.
They're so good, but they take forever.
And it's like they're half an hour and then like 10 minutes of that is adverts and it's like, come on. I know. It makes me actually want to wait until it's all out and then binge it.
Yeah, I did that.
I can't handle the suspense.
Right.
Does me in.
Yeah, there's a lot of podcasts like that where you have to wait till it's all out and then listen to everything. I can't do it like week by week.
No, or like someone will suggest a podcast to me, I'll be like, how many episodes are there?
Yeah.
Because if it's only 2, I'm not interested.
Right. Yeah. Unless they're 8 hours long each.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to switch to audiobooks.
Right. Speaking of podcasts.
Oh, yeah?
Let's talk about our podcast.
Yeah, good. That's a great little, what do they call
segue.
that? Segue, that's it.
Yeah.
I was going to say link. No, good segue.
I listened to another podcast and they do that for every subject that they jump to. They're like, speaking of so-and-so.
I like it. My Favourite Murder. On there, Georgia will just go, whatever someone says, she'll just go, speaking of merch. Like, she'll just like say it even when no one else has said anything, which I kind of like.
Yeah, I used to do that with my siblings. We'd just randomly go, speaking of birthdays.
A boyfriend won't make it better. I promise you that. This has come full circle, but I said, I think Ruth hasn't had a boyfriend in so long that she's forgotten how shit they can be.
Yeah.
You're just imagining this perfect day with like confetti and like a fucking
Right.
ticker tape parade and like a puppy jumping out of a box. And it's like, no, mate, they will spill soup on your card and turn up really late with a plant pot.
Unwrapped plant pot.
Oh, you piece of shit. Anyway, so,
Whatever.
whatever.
There are some good guys out there, but yeah.
There are. And to be fair, for the 2 I've slagged off, I've probably had 6 other boyfriends that gave me great birthdays. So,
Yeah.
but we're not talking about them.
They're no fun.
That's not funny. So,
Yeah.
who cares? Right, okay, speaking of podcasts, let's do your first this week, I believe.
Yes. Our theme this week is Twisted Firestarters.
Yeah. And you were like, what the fuck is a twisted fire starter? And I was like, oh, just an arsonist, but it's just a nod to the Prodigy song.
Yeah, I thought so.
That didn't come off as well as I thought it would.
I thought it was arson, but I
What
wanted
else
to be
would
like,
it be though, Rach?
I don't know. Like maybe you were thinking like crazy.
Acrobats.
Yeah.
Acrobats on fire.
Yeah.
Started to go really specific.
Right.
No, it's just about arsonists, which I find are a really strange breed.
Yeah. Let's just get into my story because he's a strange guy. It's kind of a short one, so.
Good, because mine's fucking long.
Okay, so this is a story of Firebug Patrick William Brennan, aka the Bay Area Arsonist.
Oh, I think if I know this, I really like this story because it's just so twisty. I might not know it, but go.
We'll see. So, from January 8th to January 12th, 2014, a total of 13 fires were started in the downtown area of San Jose, California. San Jose is it's in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
It's not far from San Francisco.
I just think, do you know the way to San Jose? Ooh, ah.
Yes! Who did that song?
Oh, I don't know, someone in the 50s.
Someone.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Don't sue us.
Listeners. So the locations included businesses, houses, including an elderly couple's home. They managed to escape. The classroom of a Baptist church. It was set on fire twice during those 4 days. And a large industrial warehouse the size of a city block that caused massive explosions, setting off 5 fire alarms at 7 a.m. in the morning, with the fire and smoke causing the roof to collapse.
Ugh.
Yeah, huge. I watched a video of it too. It's just like billowing smoke.
Fires are so overwhelming.
They are. 3 of these fires were started in one day. Schools in the area were closed due to the power being shut off to keep any further damage from starting, and residents were recommended to a shelter in place to avoid the fumes from the smoke. Luckily, no one died, but the damage caused over those 4 days totaled to roughly $6 million. That's a lot of fires to start in 4 days.
You can't write that off as an accident.
No. The police and fire department quickly determined 11 of them to be arson. They were started in the early hours of the morning, and they were started with lighting newspaper at the rear of the buildings. So they all had a common ground of...
The accelerant.
Yeah. And all the times they were started was between like 2 and 7 a.m. Also, how annoying would that be? You wake up to
again
70 fire alarms.
Oh my god. People stop setting fire to shit. Like,
yeah.
Unless you're burning down my place of work, then that's annoying.
Yeah, that's true. Get out of day, whatever.
Get out jail free card.
Yeah. I remember being in uni and they had to do fire alarms for our like dorm rooms or like our housing or whatever. And everyone would try and stay in bed because obviously you're just hungover every day. But they knew that, and they would let it go for like 2 hours, and it was the worst sound ever.
On a hangover.
Yeah. Yes.
Fuck
like
you.
Right in your ear. So that's what I imagine. 7 a.m. in the morning in San Jose downtown.
Violently flapping the fire alarm with a tea towel.
Yeah. Residents of the area began watch patrols and watered down their homes and outdoor properties with garden hoses. The San Jose Firefighter Union also offered a reward to find the perpetrator.
Does it rain much in San Jose?
It's a little bit more wet than LA, but I think in January it can be pretty dry in the winter.
Yeah, it's not even as if the rain's going to help you out. In England, it's fucking constantly raining. The
Yeah.
fire, like, half of it's put out just through the downpour.
Yeah, so the police obviously started investigating. During investigation, police checked security cameras surrounding each of the locations, one of which caught some grainy footage of a man blatantly setting fire behind a building. Saturday night, the 11th of January, during the arson attacks, patrol police spotted a man hanging around the area where some of the fires had been started. This, along with a composite sketch from a witness and some of the security footage, led Police Sergeant Jason Kidwell to check several law enforcement databases, including the California Arson Register, to see if any of the profiles matched up.
Well, that's a handy register to have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I don't think we have that here.
No, so I looked it up, okay? The California Arson Registry is maintained by the same organization that maintains the sex offender tracking program in California. There are far fewer registered arson offenders, about 4,000, as compared to registered sex offenders, which number over 130,000. And I also found only 3 states have an arson registry.
And are they the ones where forest fires fuck it up?
No, I don't think so.
Really? Because it makes sense for California to have one.
Right. And the other 2 are Louisiana and Ohio, which are, Louisiana has like swamps and stuff.
Yeah, quite wet.
And Ohio is like green trees, grass.
Yeah.
Just like nice.
but boring, so a lot of people start fires.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, it was just pissed up, I guess, like.
Yeah. So one of the profiles found was that of 48-year-old Patrick William Brennan. Brennan lived in the same area as all of the fires and had a history of arson in the San Jose area and beyond in other states. In 1999, he was added to the arson list after he was arrested on suspicion for setting 16 fires over spring and summer along trail sites in or near San Jose, Los Gatos, and Cupertino, where he earned the nickname the South Bay Arsonist.
That's a lot of fires. You should see my face. It's just fucking outrageous. Like,
it is.
But the thing is, like, everyone has a lighter. They don't go, no, we can't sell this lighter to you. You look like you might set fire to something. It's just so easy to do.
It is, and you could say it was an accident. If you were this guy, he didn't have a lot of money. He was kind of down and out.
Yeah.
You could be like, oh, I was starting a fire because I was cold because I don't have heat in my house or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So previous to that, he was arrested on arson charges outside of California for setting fires in and around Grand Canyon National Park in 1995 using forest debris.
I don't think that's as bad. We've been to Grand Canyon and it's pretty dry.
Well, that's why it's dangerous, though, because it can spread pretty quickly.
And it's wildlife as well. It kills wildlife, doesn't it? Forest fires.
Exactly.
Even because I know no one lives at the Grand Canyon, but like the animals do and stuff.
Right. And there's like rare plants and stuff.
That's true.
Brennan is also on the sex offenders registry for a 2001 sexual assault and battery charge in which he assaulted his girlfriend's relative, who was also a minor.
This guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah. This was a crime he spent 8 years in jail for. Also, side note, this same girlfriend that he lived with was sexually assaulted by Brennan's father.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
That is unfortunate.
And I don't bring it up as like a salacious fact, but rather like a detail that maybe gives some insight as to why he was this way.
Like who his dad is, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like what was his upbringing, which I couldn't really find out more than that about him. So after finding out this information on Brennan, police began surveillance on him on Sunday, January 12th, the last day of the arson spree. By Wednesday, January 15th, a week after the fires had started, police had collected enough evidence to collect Brennan at his trailer, where they were able to gather further evidence in his home that would link him to the crimes. He was taken in for questioning and quickly thereafter arrested.
I wonder what that evidence was.
Yeah, they wouldn't say either. I looked on like 10 different articles and they were like, the police said, what we found in his house definitely links him to all the arsons in the area.
A bumper sticker that says, I heart fires.
Yeah. Just a shrine of lighters.
His whole trailer was just made of matches.
Yeah, also it said that he lived in this trailer that was basically held up by tape. It was just, just wasn't just a down and out kind of guy.
He wasn't doing well.
No. Brennan was booked into Santa Clara County Jail the following Thursday on 2 counts of felony arson, with a bail set at $1 million. His neighbors were shocked to find that he was the arsonist behind the week's fires, and also had no idea that he was a registered sex offender. They also figured out that there was like a church pretty much across a path from him, and they were like, oh yeah, a couple of fires started there as well. That must have been him.
Yeah, I mean, who else?
Yeah. They described him as someone who kept to himself, an odd chain-smoking loner. He was often seen carrying a police radio around attached to his belt, which he would listen to intently.
That's on the bingo. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Impersonating a police officer, trying to, or like having a police radio so you know if they're coming or not.
Yeah. When I was doing my research, there's another really famous case about a guy who tried to become a police officer and he didn't get through. And it's a really famous arson. I think maybe My Favorite Murder did it or someone, but...
Was he an arson inspector?
Yes. He was the arson inspector in Glendale, which is not far from where I live.
Yeah.
And he would be the first at the scene, and everyone was always impressed with him being the first at the scene.
I know. That's the one I thought you were going to do.
Yeah. But then I thought it's already been done.
Yeah.
So.
If you haven't heard it, definitely go and seek it out because it's fucking outrageous.
It's a crazy story.
It's just like the perfect cover.
It is. And then I just like how they were all impressed. Like, oh, he was the first at the scene always.
He is really on it.
Yeah. While in custody, police questioned Brennan, who readily admitted to setting the fires. He told them that the cause of his compulsion was due to stress after seeing his mother, who had Alzheimer's, and she had not recognized him. He had admitted previously during the 1999 fires that setting fires was a stress reliever. Investigators also believed them to be a sexual release.
I was going to say, have a wank.
Yeah.
Far less harmful for the environment, for your peers. Private wank.
Yes.
Not on anyone, not near anyone.
No.
In your sellotape trailer. Like, quietly and on your own.
You know, by yourself. Do whatever you need to do.
Gross.
He admitted that he wanted to be caught finding locations where there was security cameras. He said he needed to be caught because he couldn't stop himself. Brennan told police that he used debris, dried vegetation, and a paper bag laying nearby to start the fires with a cigarette lighter. It's so crazy how, like, a little lighter can cause that much damage.
Yeah, also, like, I don't know what houses and stuff are made up, but you think, like, well, I guess you could just set fire to a door because they're usually wooden. But buildings are brick buildings. Like, what are you doing? Like, slipping it under the door? Like, I don't understand how he's managed to get the fire inside from outside. Do you know what I mean?
They said that the big industrial warehouse that he set fire to, that had like 6 different businesses in it.
Okay.
So there was like a plumbing business that had all kinds of supplies. There was a hay business.
That's the first one I'd be hitting.
I know.
He's like that. Plumbing, no. Clothes store, no. Hey!
There we go.
Bingo.
Okay, so arresting officers commented that Brennan was cold and held no emotion when he was arrested. The only time that he did show any type of emotion was when he enthusiastically retraced his steps for police, telling them how and when he started each fire.
Ugh.
Yeah, pretty excited about it. In December of that year, Brennan pled guilty, risking 25 years to life for each of the fires started, which reached to about a possible 325-year sentence. However, he agreed to a 40 years to life prison sentence. Bud Porter, a deputy district attorney in Santa Clara County, said, "We believe it is the right sentence. We do not want him to get out because he's shown time after time that he's dangerous because he can't stop setting fires. And that is the story of the Bay Area arsonist.
It's just so mad. Like, your story and my story have got some real similarities. Like, the way they just can't stop themselves. It's like a sneeze.
Yeah.
And they're not out to murder people. They
No.
just want to see something
This guy
burn.
wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. Do you think, like, they should just put them in rehab with, like, a imitation fire on the wall on, like, a TV? Like, just have a watch of this instead of burning down half the neighbourhood. Like, I can't think what your treatment would be for that kind of fucking
I don't know.
abnormality.
I feel like everyone has a weird compulsion, though. You know, and it could be something as simple as, like, biting your nails.
Yeah.
Or tearing the labels off of beer bottles.
Yeah. Like, I play with my hair quite a lot. Like, my fringe or my hair, and, like, I'll do it, and then I'll be like, okay, my head's starting to hurt, and my hair's getting really greasy. And I'm like, this needs to stop. But, like, I do that without thinking.
Yeah. When I was a little kid...
What did you set fire to?
I didn't set fire to anything. Okay, so there was... Our neighbors was, like, 3 houses away.
Mm-hmm.
And they had these trees that were, like... The bark was, like, really easily... You could, like, peel it off.
That sounds satisfying.
And for some reason, it was, for me, as a small child, I like, snuck there. I think it started off me I didn't sneak there. I just went and did it. And then the old lady who lived there came out and she was like, you can't do that to my tree.
It'll kill the tree. Like, it will eventually.
Yeah. And then, so when she told me that, then from time to time, I would just sneak there. And do it. And when I think back now, I was like, I think maybe that was some kind of weird compulsion and I had this need to do it.
That's weird stress reliever.
I know. So weird.
To be fair, you're the oldest of 9. I don't blame you for peeling bark off trees.
Yeah, but at that time, it was just like me and my sister and brother.
She wasn't even born.
There weren't that many.
I'm so ashamed. It's like in The Simpsons where Homer eats flowers.
Right.
And Bart's like, that explains his strange trips to Amsterdam. And he goes to him, oh, go eat some flowers. And Homer's like, my secret shame.
Yeah, I guess I get that kind of weird compulsive need to do something like that, but obviously I'm not like that anymore. I got over it. So, and I think one of the articles about this guy, one of the police officers or detectives was like, yeah, this guy doesn't know who he is. He's 48 years old and he's never been able to like process who he is.
Yeah. Well,
maybe that's it.
It's one of the McDonald triad, isn't it? Wetting the bed, hurting animals, and setting fires.
Yeah.
One of the 3 things that you could tell when a child's going to grow up to be like a serial killer. Although loads of people have said like, that's not an exact science, and I'm sure it isn't. But like Israel Keyes set fires, didn't he?
Yeah, and he hurt animals too, I think.
Yeah. I don't know about bedwetting. He never admitted that. He set fires. Sometimes he set them to cover up a crime, but he admitted that like a lot of the time he just did it because he wanted to.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around the logic, but I don't want to do anything that's a hassle in any way, shape or form. Anything.
Just leave me alone in my room by myself. Yeah. I won't bother anyone and no one will bother me.
I'll call you once a week to do this and that's fine.
Yeah.
God, lockdown, honestly, it's turned me into such a fucking weird hermit.
What are people going to be like after this, you know?
Never the same. Like, I really don't think it's ever going to be the same. I hope it will.
Yeah.
But
never in my life have I gone to bed so early all the time.
Really?
So consistently.
Mate, yes. I'm always in fucking bed by 10. Like, always.
I'm like, oh, this is nice. Why didn't I do this before?
Oh my God. Not only am I in bed by 10, I also have like a run up to bed where I'm like, right, bath, book, no phone, lavender oil, like hissing into the room. And then I'm like, okay, and now I'm going to listen to some ASMR. And now we're just going to gently take the ASMR out and pop the earplugs in and go to sleep. It's honestly
that's really good
military precision because I've had people say like, oh fuck's sake, like why'd you go to bed so early and stuff, but it's like if I don't, my anxiety the next day is off the wall. I will jump at like anything. I'll be really grouchy. I just can't think of anything else but going to bed.
Yeah.
Or I'll like burst into tears at something and I'll be like, oh, right, you didn't sleep very well last night. Like a toddler.
Right.
So it's just not worth it.
It's true, though. It's so hard for me to do something like that, though. Even though I know how important sleep is.
Yeah.
It's just like always been really hard. But now this is like the positive thing of quarantine is like, I want to go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 7 a.m. And I've never, ever been like that.
Do you read in bed?
Yeah.
The feeling of having a book in bed with just a lamp on. Oh, it's bliss. Do you not think?
Yeah.
It's fucking lovely. Oh, so relaxing.
Except if you have a boyfriend or husband who's like, can you turn the light off now? Can you turn the light off now?
Mine's quite the opposite. Like, well, it used to be like, when I had a boyfriend, thanks for bringing it up, Rach. Yeah, it used to be like, okay, well, I'm not tired because it's 9:30, so I'll see you in like 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd be like, okay, don't make any fucking noise when you come in the room. And people wonder why I'm single. I just don't know what to tell them.
No, but I've been reading this book lately before bed. It's called Beneath a Scarlet Sky, and it's set during World War II.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. It's a true story about this guy who was a really good skier, and he helped Jews escape into Switzerland from Italy.
On skis?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And then he... I know.
I was joking.
It's an amazing story. He did it. There was a lot of hiking, but I just got finished with the chapter where he literally like put a pregnant woman on his back and skied most of the way.
What a hero.
Yeah. And then he, I haven't gotten to this part yet, but he became a driver for one of the like higher up Nazi.
Yeah, SS officers.
Yeah. So lately, all my dreams have been like World War II Nazi.
Oh, mate,
like
I love that. I'm obsessed with it. The Last Nazis, and like there's like loads of programs on Channel 4 in the UK that are like Nazis on crack and like all this stuff, like because they used to take amphetamines, didn't they? Like that, I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently loads of the army, loads of the SS used to take amphetamines to just like pump them up for like fucking killing people and stuff. Really interesting.
There's this book that I've been meaning to read. I think it's called Blitzed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically about how Hitler was just on meth
Off his tits
for a lot of the time.
I mean,
yeah,
you'd have to be.
Which explains a lot.
Yeah.
It explains a lot.
It really does. I mean, I know that drugs can give you that sort of self-confidence, like unfounded self-confidence.
Yeah.
That if you want that, take some drugs.
Right.
Completely unfounded sense of inflated ego.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are what my dreams have been lately, just like hiding from Nazis.
You'd be
Or
such
just
a cute...
anyone, or I might be like helping Jews, so...
You would be the cute woman in the little dress that helped people. Like, you'd hide them under your floorboards. I can just see it. And I feel like I would be one of those people who's like one of those Jews that pretends they're going to fuck a Nazi officer and then takes him into the woods and shoots him. Like, that'd be me. Like, revenge and power hungry.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's really no need to shoot them. You could just help them. And I'm like, no.
Nope, that's it.
Nope, burn it down.
Burn it down.
Yeah. Speaking of burning it down.
Yes!
Yes! That was a brilliant one.
Yes.
That was fantastic. I'm going to start my story for you, and I better get cracking because it's fucking long.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a story of Bruce George Peter Lee, who was known as the Hull Arsonist.
Oh. Last week my story was in Hull.
Was it? Oh, yeah. God, they've had a nasty past.
Yeah.
Peter George Dinsdale was born on July the 31st in 1960 in Manchester, England. His mother, Doreen, was a sex worker, and she would call him a freak because he had epileptic fits.
Aw.
We're already off to a bad start.
Yeah.
He also had congenital spastic hemiplegia in his right limbs, and I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. So spastic hemiplegia is a neuromuscular condition which leaves the muscles on one side of the body being in a constant state of contraction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it sounds really painful. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it is, but it just does. It falls under the mobility impairment of cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And about 20 to 30% of people with cerebral palsy have spastic hemiplegia. So the way it affected him was it left him with a limp in his right leg and a compulsion to hold his right arm across his chest. He never knew his father because he left Doreen when Peter was really young. So she sent him to live with his grandmother when he was only 6 months old, and he lived there until he was 3, and then he spent the rest of his childhood in different children's homes. He went to a school for the physically handicapped until he was 16, and people bullied Peter his whole life. And when he was a teenager, he became known as Daft Peter.
Aww.
It's so horrible.
He's really not set up for success. He's already got a mean mom.
Yeah, like a visible disability as well.
Yeah.
Which is shit because people have had a pop at him before they even know him.
Right.
And kids are really horrible. They're just the
They
worst.
can be.
As an adult, he worked as a labourer at a local speedway track, and he worked at a pig market, and he was also he worked as a babysitter. So he must have been kind of trustworthy.
Yeah.
If you're a babysitter. In 1969, when he was 9 years old, he burned down a shopping mall, causing £17,000 worth of damage.
Whoa.
Yeah, so starting early. And then 4 years later, when he was 13, on June the 23rd, 1973, he started a fire at the Ellerington residence, and there was a pupil at the same special needs school as he was, living there, and he died when he was trapped in the front bedroom of his home when his parents, siblings, and 2 guests were all escaping from a less damaged bedroom, and they were unaware that he wasn't with them.
Oh no.
Yeah, he just got left behind, and he was 6.
Oh.
So no definite conclusion was reached at the inquest, although there was a suspicion that there had been a leak from the gas oven. So that just got written off as an accident.
Yeah.
So that was in the June, and then in the October in the same year, he burned down the house of Arthur Smythe. Some places he's listed as Bernard Smythe, because like the details on this were pretty hard to find, but like I cobbled together like from 3 or 4 different sources, like Murderpedia, Wikipedia, and Crime and Investigation website, and somehow through all of those I managed to get it together. But he was a reclusive bachelor and a hoarder, and he died when paraffin was ignited in the lounge, trapping him as he rarely left the room even to sleep at night. And paraffin was Peter's favoured accelerant, and that was detected in the room, but it was put down to 2 paraffin heaters, one of which was overturned, leading to an unconfirmed suspicion that it had come into contact with the flame of a candle that Mr. Smythe used for lighting as the electricity was cut off. So for that fire, they were basically like, hoarder, had a paraffin lamp and a candle, just added all that together and were like, he burnt his own house down.
So far, he's killed 2 people.
Yes, 6-year-old and a 72-year-old. And then, so about 10 days so it's actually about 15 days after that, he killed a man called David Brewer, who was 34. He was a bachelor, partly incapacitated by a work accident, and he died after falling asleep on the settee of the flat that he shared with his mother, who wasn't at home. And he woke up and he was just on fire.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, how you put this down to an accident, I do not fucking know. So he was doused by wet towels and fetched by a neighbour, but he died in hospital 8 days later. No other fire damage beyond the settee and surrounding linoleum was found.
How did he get into his house?
I think he was just really fucking sneaky. And at this point, he's 13, so he's quite, like, nimble.
Oh, yeah.
No other fire damage. And this is the time... Arlo's licking me. This is the time in history where they're like, we left our doors open. You know, you could leave your doors open in the street and it didn't matter. Like, I think people were far less safety conscious. So there'd been reports of clothes drying by the fire, and the inquest concluded that these had caught light. But Peter later confirmed that he was friends with the son of a woman in the next flat, and he sneaked in to set fire to his victim because he had hit him 2 days earlier in a row about the pigeons he kept. So he was basically standing up for his friend in his eyes.
Okay.
So while the guy was asleep on the sofa, he went in and set fire to him.
Yeah.
That is savage.
Wow.
I hate it when, like, okay, if someone dies in a fire, that is horrible. But I hate it when they're like, oh, they died like 8 days later in hospital. You're just like, what an agonising, slow death.
Right.
You know when you burn yourself on an oven and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, it really hurts. I just think that over your whole body, like, oh my God, just fucking put me in a coma. And if you can't fix it, then fuck it. Because
it must be so horrible, though. If you're burnt all over, your body is working so hard to recover. So it's just putting all of this energy into making your skin be better and under your skin. Just so much energy put into that. And that's probably how people die, is because they're just spent.
Yeah, basically. And also, when you get really bad burns, I think it's like some of it can be like, you can't even feel it because it's like nerve damage. But some of it, like, you can feel more because it like damages the nerves a little bit and then it gives you like nerve pain. Yeah. Oh, just fucking hideous way to go.
I know.
You know, people are like, well, I don't know if they do it to you, but like when I was a kid, maybe the people I hung about with were weird. But they were like, would you rather be burnt to death or drown to drown? Drown every fucking time.
I don't know.
Really? Rach?
Yeah, drowning terrifies me.
But have you watched Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Loads of people get burnt in that and it doesn't look very nice.
I just think of smoke inhalation. As long as you can pass out from smoke inhalation and then die, then it's okay. That's
true. And I always put myself in the position of like, what if I was a witch in the medieval times and they were like, we're going to burn you to death. I always think I would just be like gasping for air so that I just passed out because of like the carbon monoxide.
Exactly.
But luckily they don't burn witches anymore and they don't often burn people in our society, so we're okay. Right, so they put that down to the clothes drying by the fire. So again, just thought that was an accident. And then he leaves it for like a year that we know of. And then in December of 1974, Elizabeth Rachael was 82 and this is horrible, she was a widow with weak legs and bad eyesight. And she died when a fire engulfed the living room of her house where she also slept at night. Although relatives and neighbours said she was a careful smoker and always made sure drying clothes were at the side of the fire rather than in front of it, the inquest concluded that she had started the blaze herself through smoking in bed.
Police, what are you doing?
I feel like they're just like, can't be bothered. Like, although, again, in the 70s and 80s, people started house fires with like chip pans, fucking shitty electric heaters, having a fag on in bed. Like, they did. Because everyone smoked. And there was no health and safety. Like, none of your furniture had to be flame-proof. Now, like, you can't sell a settee unless you can hold a lighter to it for like 5 minutes and it won't set alight. Like,
everything was just made out of plastic shit in the 80s that would burn up in seconds.
Your house was basically kindling. And your clothes were polyester, so that went up like the clappers. It was just, the 80s was just one big fire waiting to happen. So, poor Elizabeth, that got passed off as just never mind. And then in June of the next year in 1976, was that the next year? Sorry, it's 2 years later. 1-year-old Andrew Edwards was taken upstairs to bed by his great-grandmother who was babysitting for him and his elder brother and sister while their parents were out. Sorry, I said that sentence in like a really weird intonation. I think it's because there aren't enough commas in it. I didn't know when to stop. So,
just keep going and going and going.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so she's babysitting for him and his older brother and sister while their parents were out. That's how it should have gone.
Okay.
So only to discover a fire in the upstairs cupboard where 2 more of her great-grandchildren were playing. So she grabbed both children and took them to a neighbour and waited for the fire brigade, only then remembering the baby upstairs.
How do you forget?
Fucking hell. When someone casually asked if anyone else was in the house. I mean, she is a great grandmother. Maybe they were just like stuck for babysitters and they were like, fuck. I know she's a bit forgetful, but we really need her.
Oh.
I know. But this, like, okay, so she was unable to get back in at this point. And the inquest concluded that as the fire had started in the understairs cupboard, that the little boy must have started it himself with some matches.
A 1-year-old?
Yeah. It's just fucking blaming anyone at this point, aren't they?
Yeah.
The great-grandmother was so traumatised by the incident afterwards that she was committed to a mental hospital.
Oh, that is traumatizing.
She felt fucking bad about that. But, oh, God bless her. Old people break me down. Then the next year, in January 1977, Katrina Thacker was aged 6 months old and she died in her cot in the living room of her home when a fire broke out while her mother was taking her half-sister to the toilet, which was probably a fucking outhouse at this point. It was probably a shed behind her house, not in the actual house. A toddler asleep upstairs was rescued. The fireplace was stacked with fuel but no flame. But the inquest still concluded that a spark from the fire had set the living room alight. Peter knew the family through an interest in pigeons. I really don't know what his fucking thing with pigeons is. But he had recently fallen out with that family over his habit of walking in their house uninvited.
Yeah.
So...
You shouldn't do that.
No, but this just goes to show, again, everyone's fucking door's open. But, like, I remember when I was a kid, my mum would leave the door open because my brothers were out all day.
Yeah, we always had our front door open.
Like, unlocked, not, like, wide open.
When my parents weren't home, then we stayed inside and we locked the doors.
Yeah. So then April the 27th, 1977, Deborah Hooper, she was a mentally handicapped girl and the son of a friend who was staying... Sorry, fuck me, I need to put commas in this thing. So Deborah Hooper was 13. She was in the house, and also in the house was a son of a friend who was staying. So They both died when a fire engulfed the lounge and sent smoke to the bedroom area upstairs. The little boy's father was asleep on the settee, which is just the couch. I haven't heard that word in donkey's years.
Also, they don't use that here.
No, but we sometimes call it a settee. When the fire began, and he ran upstairs to warn the other inhabitants before returning down to escape through the front door. The man of the house woke his wife, their 2 daughters, and their guests' 2 sons, all of whom were asleep in the back bedroom, and ushered them to leave via the window. 2 of the children were helped out, but there was no sign of the others. The little boy, with considerable thoughtfulness, had gone back to try and help the handicapped girl, and both had become overcome by smoke.
No.
I know. The inquest suggested the man asleep in the lounge had left a cigarette burning, despite there being little evidence to support this, and the boy was later recommended for a posthumous bravery award. Posthumous.
Yeah, he was a hero.
Yeah. So, sorry, I promise you there's only a couple more of these. So, on the night of January the 5th, 1977, Peter was 16 years old. So all of this has happened pre-16.
Crazy.
Fucking nuts. He set a retirement home.
Who was watching him?
No one, evidently. No one. Like, his mum was a sex worker and hated him. And his nan, she looked after him till he was 3, and then he was just in children's homes. So...
Yeah, it was the pigeons. The pigeons were watching over him.
He hung out with pigeons who were clearly a bad influence. So he had set a retirement home called Wensley Lodge on fire using paraffin as an accelerant. Loves it. Peter had previously had an argument with one of the residents, but that resident wasn't there at the time and didn't even find out about the fatalities until he read about them in the newspaper. So the care assistant on duty that night saw smoke coming from a first floor corridor, and having yelled for his colleague to phone the fire brigade, found the bedroom where the fire was sourced and managed to escort the sole resident from the room. So that's good. Despite this, the fire spread through the first floor and to the second, trapping more residents. The inquest accused a plumber who had used a blowtorch earlier that day directly below the room where the fire started, although experts said there were no faults with the plumber's work or tools, and the plumber denied any errors on his part. 11 people died in the fire and 6 more were injured.
Wow. This kid.
He is a little shit, to put it lightly. On January the 6th, 1978, Christine Dickinson, 24, was a mother who died with 3 of her 4 sons as she tried to rescue them from the flames and smoke of their terraced house. She had been chatting outside to a neighbour, and her 4 sons, Mark Dixon, age 5, Stephen Dixon, age 4, Michael Dixon, age 16 months, were in the house, and her unwell husband was in the bed upstairs when she noticed smoke coming from the window and instinctively ran inside. She came out with her baby son and handed him to a neighbour, and then went back inside to fetch the other 3, but was trapped and eventually engulfed by the blaze.
And the husband was too?
He escaped. So he escaped from the stairs and through the front door. I mean, could you grab a kid on your way?
So I was thinking about the great grandma who forgot about the baby. Like,
Oh.
maybe I don't know what I would be like in that situation. Maybe you're just full of panic and your instincts are just like, get away, get away, get away.
Yeah.
You can't tell if you would be like, oh, I gotta grab my dog, or
You would feel fucking awful.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been in a house fire, so I really can't judge, but like, yeah, I mean, a mother going back in to save her children is just like, oh.
Yeah.
So again, the inquest suspected that the eldest two boys had somehow found matches and lit the fire themselves.
You guys.
No one's playing with matches
Come
that
on.
much.
No.
I bet there wasn't a box of matches in that house.
If all of this is in the same area as well, it keeps happening over the span of what, 8 years?
I would start to suspect the fucking the inquest people. I'd be like, are you
Right.
doing this?
Yeah.
So the mother again was later given a posthumous bravery award, and the baby that she saved was brought up by his grandmother. So I guess that's
Okay.
a little bit of a happy ending.
Yeah.
This is a really weird detail, but I thought it was worth mentioning. In 1979, Doreen remarried, and Peter changed his name to Bruce George Peter Lee, both after his stepfather's surname and as a homage to the actor Bruce Lee. So he's basically called Bruce and then 2 middle names and then Lee. So he's just called Bruce Lee now. To be fair though, what is he now, 17? Like, you're 17 in the 70s.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee has just rose to fame. You decide you're poor, misguided fool.
That'd be the equivalent of a 17-year-old now changing their name to like Dwayne,
Yeah.
Peter, The Rock, Johnson.
Dwayne, Peter Dave, The Rock Johnson. Because he was born Peter Dinsdale.
Right.
All right, Pete. No, it's Bruce Lee. Pete, fuck
Yeah.
off. Yeah, and I'm fucking Chuck Norris.
The pigeons are all right with it.
The pigeons call him Bruce Lee. I haven't even drunk. So, on the 4th of December, I really wish I hadn't done that. And part of me says cut it out, but then part of me says you acting like a cock is quite funny. I don't know, Rachel, you decide. So, on the 4th of December 1979, and this is the last one, I promise. On the 4th of December 1979, a fire broke out at the front of a house on Selby Street in Hull. Inside were Edith Hasty and her sons Thomas and Charles, who were both 15, Paul, who was 12, and Peter, who was 8. The family were asleep at the time. Again, it's like an early morning thing, I suspect. 15-year-old Charles rescued his mother by pushing her out of an upstairs window. He couldn't help his brothers, Paul and Peter, though, who were in the house at the same time who were in the same bedroom as him. Opening the bedroom window had caused a draft which fed the fire, and then all 3 were trapped and burned severely and were taken to the specialist burns unit in Pinderfields Hospital. Charles died overnight. Peter died 2 days later. He's the 8-year-old. And Paul survived. He's 12 and he survived for 12 days before succumbing to his injuries.
Aww.
Again, hideous. Thomas, who is also 15, survived by escaping through a window in the back bedroom where the flames were less severe. Edith Hasty also had 3 daughters who were staying with relatives elsewhere in the area in that particular night, which
That's
is
lucky.
very lucky. So her husband, Tommy Hasty, was in prison, so he wasn't there. And when they found out that this happened, they let him out on compassionate leave, like immediately.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was quite nice. He can't have done anything that bad.
Hopefully not.
I hope not. The police set up a makeshift incident room in a former police station on Gordon Street and began talking to local people about the fire and the family.
Finally.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, fuck me, this is really getting too much now. So
Yeah.
They were shocked that despite the severity of the fire which led to their deaths, the neighbours seemed nonplussed. It was discovered that the Hasty boys were well-known local delinquents and they were responsible for several cases of vandalism and petty robberies. At the boys' funeral, Edith had a grief-stricken outburst that nobody cared about them. So
That's sad.
it's horrible.
Yeah, like even if you're like a crappy teenager, doesn't mean that your family deserves to die.
No, and like I could have done another story as well, which was Mick Philpott, who in England he was on a show that was basically about people like benefit scrounging and stuff, and he was on like the Jeremy Kyle show, if you know what that is.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Jerry Springer of England.
Yeah, and they've stopped filming it now, and it's been cancelled because about 4 people committed suicide after they were on it.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, because it's just bear baiting. Like, it's just choosing people from lower economic backgrounds with like little education and just making them look like fools on telly.
Right.
It is like poking fun at the poor for a laugh. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It really was.
And Jeremy Kyle is so smug too.
Oh, he's a massive cunt, and he cheated on his wife, and then he like goes on the show and like has a really massive pop at people for cheating on people, and I'm just like, you aren't Jesus. Like,
yeah,
you're also pretty shitty.
That was the difference between him and Jerry Springer, is like Jerry Springer had somewhat of a heart and would just he would treat it lightly, and then he would end the show with like, here's what we've learned today.
Jerry Springer's final thought.
Yeah.
So take care of yourselves and each other.
Right.
I love that show. That's also cancelled now, right?
Oh yeah, that was cancelled a long time ago. But there was a musical.
Is it because of the poking fun at the poor and the stupid?
I'm not sure. I think he just didn't want to do it anymore, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think there has come a time where you go, should we be laughing at people for things that aren't their fault? Like, I don't think we should be. It's not that funny.
For the life that they've been brought up in.
Yeah. Like, I think the world just kind of woke up. I think people started seeing it as a bit icky, didn't they? Which is...
Probably, yeah.
It's not cool. So, the investigation also found out that the Hasty Boys had a connection to the gay scene in town, and they brought in a number of boys also in that scene, including Peter, for questioning, because I haven't mentioned this yet, but I think he's bisexual because he has an interest in boys, but he also had a crush on one of the girls that wasn't in the house. 6 months after the inquiry began, Peter confessed in great detail that he had poured paraffin through the letterbox and set it alight. He wanted revenge against Charles Hasty. Peter said that the 15-year-old boy had threatened to go to the police. He was a minor, and Peter wasn't. After they had some sexual contact, and Charles said that he would tell people unless Peter gave him some money. So it was and it was also reported that Peter had become infatuated with Charles' sister Angelina, but she had rejected his repeated advances. So he had like a twofold reason for setting the house on fire.
I'm stuck on the fact that he put something through the letterbox and lit it on fire. If you are a good firefighter, detective, you'd be like, here's where it started. I
think with the rest, he kind of snuck in and said it. But with this one, he put it through the letterbox, so it's pretty fucking plain that it was... And that's why the police started doing an investigation, finally.
Right.
Like, they couldn't deny that someone pouring paraffin through a fucking letterbox is pretty sketchy. So, during further questioning, and to the complete surprise and horror of the police, Peter then went on to confess to starting 9 more fatal fires in Hull over the previous 7 years. As we've said, none of the fires were treated with suspicion at the time. A total of 26 people had died in the blazes. Dozens more were burned or suffered from smoke inhalation or received injuries while escaping. Peter claimed that most of the fires were started at random because he loved fire, not because he wanted to kill anyone. Only the Hasty fire and 2 others were at the houses owned by people he knew and had a grudge against. Investigating officers then drove Peter around the city of Hull to the locations he said he had committed arson. Although he couldn't specify dates, research later showed that fires had indeed been started at every house that he indicated.
Wow.
Peter said that when he heard of the deaths he caused, he sought solace in the Bible, but wasn't convinced he should stop or confess.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't even know why I included that, because it's like completely fucking pointless. He just like tosses the Bible in the corner and sets fire to it.
Doesn't say anything in there.
He's like, I'm not sorry, but this does look like it would burn good.
I feel like there are fires in the Bible, though. What am I thinking of?
You would know better than me.
There's yeah.
I don't think I've ever read the Bible. I think I flicked through it in a hotel once and was like, oh, the writing's really small. And in columns.
There are some crazy stories in there, Talicza.
The Old Testament, I bet.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last book, the Book of Revelations, is about the end of the world. And that's just nuts.
Right. You know, I mean, one day I might give it a read. Couldn't hurt.
Nah.
You're like, I've done it. It's boring. Don't bother.
Yeah.
It's really preachy. Again, that's a fucking Simpsons reference that I've ripped off. And Homer goes about the Bible. He goes, talk about a preachy book. Everybody's a sinner. Except this guy.
That's the general gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. So on the 20th of January 1981, at Leeds Crown Court, Peter pleaded not guilty to 26 counts of murder, but he did plead guilty to 26 counts of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility and to 11 counts of arson. Peter confessed that he was a pyromaniac, no shit, claiming that the tingling in his fingers signalled to him that it was time to light a fire.
What? You're not a superhero.
I know. Mr. fucking wreck everything. He also stated, I am devoted to fire and I despise people.
Okay.
That's not good. Peter was found to be criminally insane and was taken to Rampton Secure Hospital. Although he was the most prolific killer in the UK at the time, he received little publicity, possibly because he was convicted of manslaughter rather than murder, and also because the trial of Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, was ongoing at the time, and that was a much more high-profile case.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who the Yorkshire Ripper is, look it up. It's grim.
I'm sure the time of Ted Bundy, there are some murderers around that time and we know nothing about them.
Yeah. The article about this guy on Crime and Investigation was like the worst serial killer you've never heard of. But I think it's also because he wasn't sadistically trying to kill people. He's just a nutter. He's just an absolute nutter.
Right.
And he was sent to a insane asylum, basically.
Yeah, but he still set a guy on fire and he was still going to family homes. Like, with my story, he was setting
nobody
buildings
died.
And houses on fire. Nobody died.
Yeah, which is good. And also insurance. So I know it's a pain in the dick, but I'm sure they're all insured up to the eyeballs. Whereas, this is people's houses with their babies in. So it is a bit, it's a lot fucking worse.
Right.
Also, in England, if something happens in Hull, people in the south don't care for it much, especially if there's already one story going on.
Right.
The Yorkshire Ripper went on for fucking ages and women were getting hammered in the back of the head, so it was a bit more like visceral and a bit more like watch when you walk home, women, because you're going to get attacked kind of thing. And then that set off like a feminist movement that was like, it was called We Own the Night. And there's a great documentary. I'll try and find it and post it, but it's a really old BBC documentary about the Yorkshire Ripper, but it covers like some of the feminist like issues that came from it, which was basically a group came out called We Own the Night because it was happening in university town, and the university students would march and stuff, and they were basically saying there was a curfew for women. And they were like, fuck that. Why isn't there a curfew for men?
Right.
It's obviously a man who's hammering the shit out of people and then spunking on them. Why the hell do we have to stay in?
They should be the ones staying in.
Yeah.
They're the dangerous ones.
They're the ones that can't be trusted. But that had like a bigger social kind of movement behind it as well. So that was pretty interesting. And then in 1983, a public inquiry concluded that the fire at the Wensley Lodge was accidental and that Peter was not responsible. Even though he said, yes, I was. So that's really weird. But anyway, as a result of that, 11 manslaughter convictions were later quashed on appeal, and his death toll now stands at 15. And that is the story of Bruce Lee, definitely not Bruce Lee, Peter George Lee.
Wow. I'd be, again, same as last week, I'd be so pissed off if I were the family members of the people who died. And to be like, you did this, and now you're completely free of it. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, he will most likely be in a insane asylum for like the rest of his life. That's the only benefit of saying somebody is criminally insane, is that you don't have to give them a date that you're going to let them out.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're in prison, they might get parole at some point. Also, like, this was really interesting. Like, I don't know if it's completely true, but like Carly's dad was a painter and decorator, and he worked in Broadmoor, the mental hospital, and he said that they had a thing in the wall where they would put their cigarette in this little hole in the wall and that would light it because they weren't allowed lighters. But then you've still got a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder, they have cigarettes in prison and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how do they trust them with lighters? I don't understand.
I don't know.
But
do they have lighters or do they have matches or yeah.
Because you'd think that there'd be a lot more fires in prison, wouldn't you?
Like I've seen in movies where they do it as like a distraction.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's it.
I think we've got to get like a prison officer on, or a prison guard, or like I know a guy who started talking to me as a result of the podcast, and he was telling me that he was a police officer. He's no longer a police officer because he said it was just really soul crushing.
Wow.
I didn't know this, and I thought it was really interesting. He said that in court, when you go to court, you have to wear a clip-on tie because otherwise someone might try and strangle you.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of that.
I've never heard of that, and I never thought of it.
That makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense. He's like, everyone in that courtroom has got a clip-on tie.
I used to work in a police uniform store.
What?
And
Rachel?
I never told you that?
No.
Oh. Well, we sold police clip-on ties.
Oh my god. Oh, that is completely out of the blue.
Yeah. I don't know why sometimes it just pops into my head like, oh yeah, I used to do that.
Why though? I need more information. Like, that's not the end of the story.
Okay. I worked in a police uniform store. It wasn't just, they sold like nurse uniforms and
Is this
firefighter.
the UK?
No, this was in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
This was in the space of time of when I moved from London back to Minnesota, started dating Will, and then we moved to LA.
Right, okay.
A couple of years after.
Yeah.
So I worked there because my aunt worked there for like 20 years. She was one of the managers there, and they just needed someone part-time to like put away clothes. And,
yeah.
And then eventually I worked there full-time as their shipping and receivings manager. So
Rachel got promoted.
I did, because the woman who did it, she just like upped and left and moved to another state without telling anyone.
Cool, I'll slip into her grave.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to deal with like bulletproof vests.
Cool.
And clip-on ties.
Yeah.
And...
yeah, it makes total sense. Were the police officers that came in nice, or did somebody come in and like buy bulk or whatever? Did you have to prove they were a police officer to sell them the uniform? Because if someone comes in and they're just like a civilian and they buy a police uniform, obviously that's bad, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's usually like everything that they did was like special order. And usually the people who worked there, the people that I worked with, knew the police from when they started at the police academy. So they knew everyone by name. They knew like, what they needed, what their names were, knew what they looked like. So it would have been hard to just walk in and be like, I'm Officer Johnson and I need a new badge.
Yeah, that's fucking weird.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. I never think of it anymore.
Yeah, well, think more, right? Because we've got to fill these gaps in this silence.
Okay. I do have another story about police badges, but I'll save that for another day.
Oh, okay. Little cliffhanger.
Sure. My cousin Sam knows about it. We just talked about it, so...
Oh, at the wedding?
Yeah.
Nice.
She'll know what I'm talking about if she's listening right now.
Oh, Sam. Okay. All right, well, this seems like a good place to polish this off.
Yeah. Thanks for listening this week. Thanks to our Patreon supporters. And...
we can probably name all of them. There's only 4. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Lucy. Yes.
Thank you.
Remembered them. Yeah, so bye then.
Bye. See you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Transatlantic Crime this week. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at TransatCrimePod, Instagram at Transatlantic Crime, and on Facebook with Transatlantic Crime Podcast.
Thanks, bye.